Paisley Museum has what is thought to be the largest collection of shawls in the world. We have shawls covering every period of production from the early 19th century to the close of the trade in the 1870s and 80s. We continue to collect shawls and other paraphernalia related to the textile trade in Paisley. So we have the technology, many looms, hand looms, hand weaving equipment, and approximately 100 pattern and sample books. These are from Paisley shawl trade, and they show the different stages in designing a Paisley shawl. This is the first stage, where the pattern is drawn out on paper, usually the same size and colour as it appears on the cloth. And you can see from this there's a pencil grid superimposed on it. That's because it has to be transferred onto point paper or design paper, which is this here. The design paper is a particular type of paper specifically produced for the weaving trade, and the spaces, the horizontal spaces and the vertical spaces represent the warp and the weft. So each and every intersection of warp and weft is shown on the design. This here is a matching design for this. This is called a sketch, and this is called the design. So you can see here it's enlarged from this, and each of these tiny squares here are put onto one of these larger squares. And from this, the loom is programmed. So if it's a draw loom, the design is lashed into a set of cords, and if it's a jacquard loom, the design is cut into a series of jacquard cards. And then they're fed through the loom, and the design appears on the cloth then. This here is a silk sample book full of figured silk gauzes, which Paisley began weaving in 1760. By the 1770s, there was 18 silk manufacturing houses here in Paisley. And they expanded rapidly and began selling their wares all over Europe, and it became very fashionable to wear silk gauzes in all of the fashion centres of Europe. They were so successful that the French weavers began complaining about the competition from the Paisley weavers. So it was a very highly successful trade here, and that's when the town really took off as a weaving centre and became an internationally known weaving centre in Europe. Further weaving. Competition from cotton entered in about 1774 or 5, and it's really after the inventions of Arkwright and Crompton and Hargreaves when they industrialised cotton spinning, and Renfrewshire was one of the first areas to actually build factories for industrialisation of the cotton spinning process. And so all this cotton became available to the weavers then, and they began producing, rather than silk, which was more expensive, they began producing these figured cotton fabrics, and they became equally famous for their design and expertise in design and technology when weaving these very beautiful figured cotton muslin fabrics. These are various items that have been woven in the museum here, because the idea is not that we just preserve the collection, but we actually research the collection and figure out all the various aspects of how it came to be. So I've a textile background. I'm a weaver by trade and a textile designer. So what I did was concentrated on how the shawls were made, and I did research on both the design and technology, and reproduced some of the technology, and then wove these various samples of Paisley shawls, which are based on the collection here in Paisley Museum, but they're a modern version of what was produced in the 19th century. This is our shawl store here. They're all stored here on these racks in chronological order. Some of these have never really been on public display before, so we're now in the process of planning a very ambitious redevelopment of the museum where it will focus primarily on the textile collections and the textile heritage of Paisley. So it will be displayed in all its finery for the first time since the museum opened in 1871.